As Bree and Maddie and Stephanie are well aware of, telling the truth in today's cancel culture is not necessarily easy. You can pay a pretty heavy price for it, so I really appreciate everybody participating in this. But the fact is, we have close to 750,000 Americans who it's now reported died with or from COVID. 750,000. In the U.S., we rank 23rd out of more than 200 nations, and that's a bad ranking in terms of number of deaths per 100,000. We are at 220 people per 100,000 died from COVID. Now, our government officials, I talked about them not being particularly honest, not being particularly transparent. We invited them all here. None of them showed up. President Biden, for his part, in terms of honesty, July 21st, just a couple months ago, said if you're vaccinated, you're not going to be hospitalized. You're not going to be in an ICU unit. You're not going to die. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations. He said, this is a pandemic on the unvaccinated. How I wish he was right when he said these vaccines were going to be that effective. If you're not willing to acknowledge the root cause of a condition, of an injury, of a malady, of an illness, how can you hope to cure that illness? How can you help these individuals who participate in some of the trials to benefit humanity? How can you help them fully recover if you're not willing to admit that vaccine injuries are real?
We are citizens who have done our civic duty, but when we experience serious adverse effects, we're left high and dry by FDA, CDC, the NIH, and medical professionals. We are scientists alarmed by the toxic environment in academia and scientific publishing. We are military leaders concerned about vaccine safety in the armed services. We are clinicians who want to treat patients harmed by vaccines, but whose practices are limited by their employers and professional boards. And we are lawyers and patient advocates seeking help for our injured clients and their families. We are the people you haven't heard from. And we have nothing, absolutely nothing, to personally gain from being here. Indeed, we have everything to lose, including our jobs, our titles, our livelihoods. But we don't intend to go away until we see some real change. Please.
I saw 5 patients in clinic, 2 of which presented with chest pain, days to weeks after vaccination, and were subsequently diagnosed with pericarditis and worked up to rule out myocarditis. The 3rd pilot had been vaccinated and felt like he was drunk, chronically fatigued within 24 hours after vaccination. The pilot told me he didn't know what to do, so he drank a lot of coffee to try and, quote, wake himself up, and continued to fly until he realized it wasn't going away. After I reported to my command my concerns that in one morning I had to ground 3 out of 3 pilots due to vaccine injuries, the next day my patients were canceled, my charts were pulled for review, and I was told that I would not be seeing acute patients anymore, just healthy pilots there for their flight physical. There's a concept of the 10th man, the loyal dissenter. That's the person that you select to be the dissenting opinion, to prevent groupthink. Patients are entitled to a second opinion on their medical care. What happens when bureaucrats mandate that there is no dissenting opinion?
My family and I masked up, stayed indoors, and dodged COVID for over a year. We did what was asked of us by being part of the solution. That solution has taken everything from me and my family. We have been ignored and silenced. It is not right, and it needs to stop now. It is time for the federal government to do its part by acknowledging us and helping us. Does anyone really think it's fair to make the vaccine injured wait years for help? I think we can all agree that refusing or delaying the help we need is unconscionable. We urgently need this help.
I was a father of a 16-year-old son, a single parent. I raised my boy since he was a baby. He meant the world to me. I got the vaccine to protect my son. And after in March, April, they're announcing how it was safe for teenagers. Me and my son have never been apart. We're always together. He was my best friend. I always told him it was me and you against the world. We got the Pfizer vaccine because I thought it was to protect him. I thought it was the right thing to do. It was like playing Russian roulette. My government lied to me. They said it was safe. Now I go home to an empty house where I used to wake them up, I'd give them a hug and a kiss, tell them I'm going to school, don't miss school. I'd get home from work, he'd come running out. He knew when I'd get home, he'd come running out, give me a hug. I'd give him a kiss, a hug. What do you want to go eat today? Like I said, he was my baby boy. Everybody knew we're always together. Like I said, next week is his birthday. You know where I'm going to celebrate his birthday at? While everybody, once we leave here, they're going to forget about what we're doing or what they talk about, what we said here. They're going to be enjoying time with their family and kids. Thanksgiving, I'm going to spend at the cemetery. Christmas at that cemetery. Because in December 17th, 2020, they did a study, and they knew they caused heart conditions in teenagers. Why wasn't this information released until October 1st this year? If we would have known this, my son would be here with me. So I figured, like I said, they murdered my son. And the other people that are suffering, these kids, with all these side effects, that's child abuse right there. I mean, why isn't something being done? I mean, this should be pushed. We don't let anybody hurt our children.
I just want to say thank you to Dr. Fauci, to the FDA heads, CDC, NIH, everyone for not showing up to this meeting and not listening to us. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that you have our interests at heart. This message is kind of for you. It's a message on how what's happening has broke my heart literally and figuratively with our country. My name is Kyle Warner. I'm a 29-year-old professional mountain bike racer and 3-time national champion. For most of my life, I have focused on being as healthy and positive as possible and inspiring other people to do the same. This spring, when the current administration was urging young, healthy Americans to get vaccinated to help end this war on the pandemic, I stepped up. I wanted to serve the greater good. I wanted to help fight this war, not because I was afraid of COVID, but because my country asked me to. You told me, this vaccine is safe and effective, period. In June, I joined the rapidly growing number of young men who develop pericarditis post-mRNA vaccine. That is the inflammation of the liner surrounding the heart. That condition, along with POTS and reactive arthritis, have completely brought an end to life as I knew it. I have been bedridden, unable to work, and unable to exercise for months. I fear that my career has officially been ended. We were told we were fighting a war against the pandemic, and the question in the air is, will you leave your troops behind yet again? I'm not asking you to end the vaccine program by any means. All I'm asking is for some transparency and acknowledgement of what is happening, so that we as a country can have an honest discussion of the risks. I believe where there is risk, there must be choice. And without acknowledging that people are being seriously injured and dying, we are doing a great disservice to the American people.
I very willingly followed the recommendation of the CDC and received my second Pfizer shot. At that point, my whole life changed. I'm currently on disability, but I work in corporate social responsibility. I was previously an active long-distance biker and triathlete. I had no known underlying health conditions, and I live a very, very healthy lifestyle. I was used to a high energy, highly motivated lifestyle. I loved keeping my body and my mind strong and disciplined. Since I became injured, I have very little motivation or energy, and I'm in a constant state of extreme fatigue. I struggled to retrieve words. I was valedictorian in my high school. And to remember things, I can't concentrate or focus, and my brain is in constant fog. And I'm aimlessly wandering through my brain, and it's torture. This is not a pandemic of the unvaccinated. This is a pandemic of trauma. We're unnecessarily traumatized due to our cases being overlooked, misdiagnosed, and hidden. We aren't being believed, and our faith in media and the government is faltering. We are now being mandated to do something to our bodies that we know can cause problems. We think at a minimum the public has the right to know this is a possibility before they make their choice to be vaccinated. Mandates will not stop COVID. It will just continue the divide and cause feelings of anxiety. People will naturally fight, flight, or freeze when they feel threatened. I wasn't afraid of the shot when I received it. I was excited to do my part for my country. But where is my country for me now that I'm injured?
On June 29th, 2021, my happy, predictable daily life came to a screeching halt. I lost my ability to speak naturally. I have become unable to walk without a walker and never know if or when the tremors will come or go. I can no longer cook, clean, or even pick up and hold my baby for too long before my body begins to shake uncontrollably or is thrown into excruciating amounts of pain. It has become the loneliest and most isolating experience I've had in my 35 years of life. I have been made to feel that I do not matter to those in Western medicine, that I am nothing more than an annoyance and waste of time. I deserve to be heard and treated with compassion, but instead I have been called a liar and a fake, and I have even been told by the ER doctors that this is all in my head and that there is nothing medically wrong with me, to the point where they called a social worker to have me evaluated and tried to have me committed to Western State Mental Health Hospital. My life has been turned upside down, but I will continue to push forward and fight for the same medical rights and treatment as those who are not in my current position. It's time to stop allowing doctors and nurses to treat us with such disgust and demand they be held accountable for their incompassionate treatment of COVID vaccine-injured people, and demand they stop ignoring and dismissing what's happening to thousands of us around the world.
Let's talk about deaths. The ultimate signal. As of October 25th, VAERS logged over 9,000 U.S.-based reports of deaths after vaccination. Globally, it exceeds 17,000 reported into the VAERS system. How can any thinking person not look at these data and ask, just what on earth is going on? Critics rightly note that VAERS doesn't allow causality between exposure and outcome. Indeed, VAERS only provides signals, important signals, a need to further investigate. Regarding VAERS reported deaths, CDC's webpage states, a review of available clinical information, including death certificates, autopsy, and medical records, has not established a causal link to COVID-19 vaccines. I want to know, where are these medical charts and autopsy report reviews? We are making critical decisions about mass vaccination in vulnerable populations based on little to no data. In last week's VRPAC meeting on Pfizer's EUA request for children 5 to 11, committee member and New England Journal of Medicine editor-in-chief Eric Rubin acknowledged the dearth of pediatric safety data by stating, "We're not going to get the data until we start using this vaccine." Our children are our data. We need to ask, what is the purpose of VAERS and other pharmacovigilance data systems if we have mandates? Why even do any post-marketing surveillance? The reason cannot be to gather more information to make an informed personal choice, because with mandates, the vaccination decision has already been made for us by governments, by schools, by employers. Whether myocarditis occurs in 1 in 500 young people or 1 in 10,000 is moot, because mandates coerce individuals to take the vaccine or lose their educational and employment opportunities and otherwise be shunned by society.
This is the first trial any of my kids have ever been in. I never had considered ever putting them in a trial before, but this seemed like, when they asked if they could be in it, it seemed like a win-win, So it's been over 9 months since she got her second dose. She can't walk. She's in a wheelchair. She has an NG tube for all of her nutrition. She has constant pain in her stomach, back, and neck. She was over there laying on chairs because she can't make it through this. She can't feel her legs, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If they minimalize Maddie's reaction to the vaccine like this, I wonder what really happened to those in the clinical trials who had a reaction to the first dose. They never got to have the second dose. That means they're out of the trial. They're disqualified. I wonder what else was hidden in either the Pfizer trial or any of the other ones, because I know there were things hidden. Neither Pfizer, the FDA, or the CDC has ever talked to us or attempted to. We have never heard anything from them, ever. I did file it in VAERS also. Still didn't hear anything.
So that is outrageous. I mean, not only totally cast aside, but I think what you described in your testimony I would term it as a cover-up.
The heads of the NIH, FDA, and CDC have known firsthand about my case and thousands of others. These direct reports began as early as last December. I, along with several injured physicians, continued to reach out to the FDA through emails, phone calls. We did video conferences with Peter Marks and Janet Woodcock, constant emails with Janet Woodcock and myself directly. We have literally asked and we have begged repeatedly for them to acknowledge these reactions. They declined. They know that their lack of acknowledgement has created insurmountable barrier to our ability to receive medical care from doctors who rely on these agencies for information. They know about the issues with the clinical trials. They know about the deaths. They know about the lack of follow-up on VAERS. They know about the injuries to children. They know about Maddie. I have discussed Maddie with them. They know about the mandates imposed on the injured. They know about the suicides as the results of months-long suffering. They know about the aggressive censorship. They know about the media censorship. They know about the scientific censorship. They know all of it. And they have for months. CDC, FDA, NIH, we do exist. Your system is broken and you know it. You are constantly and persistently telling the public that your review of the data is thorough and your safety signaling systems are robust, when in reality, there is huge gaps in your system every single step of the way. You are not taking care of those who suffer severe adverse reactions. Stop telling the public that you are. Your refusal to take action means there will be more like us. Take responsibility for your role in the suffering of good Americans who did their part by taking the vaccine and had no idea this could happen to them. Here's your proper informed consent. If you get COVID, you will get medical help. But I'm afraid to tell you, if you have this reaction, that reaction, Maddie's reaction, Doug's reaction, you are on your own. The government won't help you. The drug companies won't help you. Your medical teams will have no idea what to do with you. Financially, you will be on your own. I would like to finish with a letter from a friend. that I received a couple of months ago. Bree. I cannot take this any longer. This has taken everything away from me. My career, my family, my life. My body will not stop attacking itself. And this is beyond the worst amount of torture. They have further erased my very existence. Please accept my apologies. I must bid farewell to this world. Please tell our stories. Please make sure the world knows the cruelty that has been imposed upon us. Goodbye, my dear friend. I will see you on the flip side. Rochelle Walensky, Janet Woodcock, Peter Marks, Anthony Fauci. You erased her, and the many others like her. Their blood is on your hands. You cannot bring my friends back, but you can save others from their fate if you finally just tell the truth. If the government won't help us, if the drug companies won't help us, who will help us?
Describe what Facebook did to your support groups.
They found us and quickly pulled us apart. They eliminated every single person in those groups, and we lost contact with a lot of people that were in crisis.
So you mentioned in your testimony that NIH knows about this, CDC knows about this, FDA knows about this. I appreciate what media came here, but not only did we invite these agency heads, we invited mainstream media, or more mainstream media, and of course they didn't show up. In our Milwaukee event in June, we actually had probably a couple dozen cameras. We had media show up. But unfortunately not to tell these stories. They showed up, and this isn't about me, but basically so they could then attack me as an anti-vaxxer. Rather than in the papers across Wisconsin, above the fold stories of Bree and Maddie, Ken Rucker's wife, they didn't tell the stories. Instead, they just had a picture of me with the headline, "So Fundamentally Dangerous." That's what we're up against. That's what these people are up against. This is why they're pleading and begging for help.
That since data is fundamental to the scientific process, surely it must be available. But it wasn't then for Tamiflu, and it isn't today for COVID vaccines. In fact, if you're interested in analyzing the data for, say, Pfizer's trial, you'll have to wait until May 2025 before you can even request it from the company. For Moderna, they recently said that the data, quote, may be available with publication of the final study results in 2022, end quote. And since the trial is not officially to end until October 2022, we're probably talking late 2022. So yes, the trial has still not ended. And yes, doctors and researchers who want to see the clinical trial data will have to wait another year from now before getting access. For J&J, try next July. If you weren't aware that the data were inaccessible, I suspect this is because so few healthcare practitioners and researchers are accustomed to conducting an independent review of the raw data. So there's little outcry when those data are inaccessible. So while we're told to keep following the science, what we are following is not a scientific process based on open data. We're following a process in which the data are treated as secret. And in my view, there's something very unscientific about that. The point I'm trying to make is fairly simple. The data for COVID vaccine trials isn't available, and it won't be available for years. Yet we are not just asking, but mandating millions of people take these products. Whatever word you want to use to describe this situation, without data, it's not science.
I'm just not safe to work as an orthopedic surgeon. After my diagnosis, I brought up the question of whether my condition could be related to the Moderna COVID vaccine that I received. I asked my employer to report it to VAERS. I was aware that the UK AstraZeneca COVID vaccine trial was delayed twice because of 3 cases of transverse myelitis. Assuming the FDA and the CDC would be alarmed at my diagnosis, I expected to be contacted soon after my VAERS submission. No phone call, no contact. In fact, weeks passed. I then contacted the CDC myself. They acknowledged my VAERS submission, but stated my reaction was categorized as not serious, as I had not been hospitalized and I hadn't died. I have never heard from the CDC again. No contact with the NIH, no contact from the FDA. I notified Moderna directly numerous times and asked that I be contacted. No one from Moderna ever contacted me. One word describes how I felt in the first few months after my diagnosis: abandoned.
By August, I literally exploded in generalized body neuropathies. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, stinging in my hands and feet, burning in the soles of my feet, prickling all over like I fell in a bush of nettles. Crazy thing is social media. You're there, you're looking for support, you find support. They suddenly tag you. Misinformation. You're not real. You're an anti-vaxxer. You devolve into more despair. To date, not a single doctor I saw, and I saw many, the list is long. I know all their names. I saved all their emails of what they said to me and what they couldn't say, and didn't say, or didn't do. Not a single one of them logged me in VAERS. Not one. All my reports are my own. If we mandate vaccines, it's clear we need to mandate manufacturers and government institutions to step up and investigate us. It's not right. It's immoral. Reactions are real. They're a part of science. I got unlucky. But it's unethical to hide them, even if it's for some greater motive. A real example of our own government being egregious in their behavior to hide it. I direct you to OSHA's website. It's right there. They are not enforcing recording requirements of worker side effects mandated to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Go to their website, it's there. Clear as day. They don't enforce reporting. That's my own government. I dedicated my life to medicine and helping people. Heartbreakingly, I ended up in the realm of the injured. But the real tragedy is not only the lack of adequate medical support, but the active and coordinated denial of our situations, even by my own colleagues. Finally, I want you to know that I was never the activist type. I never pictured myself being here. But fear and despair have changed me. This experience has shattered my life. Like all of you, I know where you are. The 24/7 tinnitus has robbed me of every moment of silence and peace. The impact on my medical career, which I love and work so hard for, is immeasurable. I will continue to fight. I will continue to research. I will find an answer for people.
Again, I want to thank everybody for participating, particularly those of you who have suffered the injuries from the vaccine. I know this is arduous. I know this is tough for you to travel, but I appreciate it. I do want to point out for anybody watching this via video, even here in the hall, even though these individuals look pretty normal, these injuries are severe. The inner vibrations that some of these people are experiencing are so severe. I just quick to ask Bree. She personally knows 7 people who have committed suicide because the inner vibrations, their symptoms were so severe they just simply could not go on with life. She knows another 15 people who have committed suicide from other members of their group. So again, the injuries don't necessarily have to be visible to be real, to be severe, to be life-altering. It is, again, unfortunate, way more than unfortunate. It's actually outrageous that our healthcare agencies, the President of the United States, members of his administration are completely ignoring these people and their plight. The courage it takes to come forward, I can testify too. The repercussions are quite grave. The vilification, the suppression of what you're trying to say, the censorship. People who have been on this journey with me have been fired from their institutions. They've been sued. Their careers and their lives, if they've known it, have been ended. So that's why you have so very few people that are willing to come forward. Their medical licenses are threatened. The profession that they trained for decades to get good at could be taken away from them. So you understand why they're remaining silent. But I would say one of the biggest impediments to further progress on this is just the basic human tendency to never admit you're wrong. President Biden won't admit he's wrong when he says that this is a pandemic of the unvaxxed, that if you get the vaccine, all's going to be well. The heads of these agencies will never admit they were wrong. My colleagues who voted for the vaccines, who have done videos encouraging everybody to get vaccinated, which, by the way, that might be the right advice for certain people. They don't want to admit they're wrong. Doctors, physicians who have recommended to patients to get the vaccine don't want to admit that their recommendation might have caused a severe harm. It's understandable. I understand that human tendency. But that doesn't overcome the basic humanity of acknowledging reality and doing everything we can as a society. Those of us that voted for Operation Warp Speed, those of us that encouraged vaccination, we have to admit there's a side effect here, and it's changed people's lives forever. So again, I'm begging anybody watching this today or via video, first of all, share the video. Share with every contact you have. Let these stories be seen, let these stories be heard, let them be believed so that as society, we can do the right thing. We can acknowledge it. We can put even just a fraction of the time and effort and resources as we've put into the shutdowns and the mask mandates and the vaccine mandates and the vaccine development and the administration of it. If we just take a fraction of that and apply it to research and treatment, and by the way, a vaccine injury fund that actually compensates those who did what everybody asked them to do, for them themselves, for the good of their neighbors, for the good of society. The least we can do with the trillions of dollars we've already allocated and spent, the least we can do is acknowledge their pain, help them recover, and compensate them for their injuries.